Thank you again for joining us for the live launch of the second annual Environmental Justice Art Contest hosted by the Washington Department of Natural Resources. Before we start, I want to cover a few things here. We will be recording this morning's meeting to make the video available to young people across Washington who were not able to join us live. This presentation should end around 10:15 a.m. If you need to leave early, you can find the recording at www.dnr.wa.gov/kids later today. Closed captions are enabled, and we also have an ASL interpreter and Spanish language interpreter joining us today. Throughout the presentation, please feel free to share any questions in the Q&A on Zoom, and we will be sure to answer. We're going to start by sharing about environmental justice, the Washington Department of Natural Resources, and the 3 topic areas for this year's contest. Later, you will hear more about how to enter the contest and the prizes for winning. So let's talk about what environmental justice is. Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Murphy, and I am a culture and development strategist at the Department of Natural Resources. It's an interesting job where I look at important numbers and information to see how we can make sure everyone, no matter who they are, has the same chances to work with us and help take care of the planet. It's like making sure everyone has a game, in a game gets a turn to play, and everyone has a chance to win. My job is to help our agency be as welcoming and as fair as possible. So, what is environmental justice? It's a big deal that's all about fairness. Imagine a world where every single person, no matter where they live, has clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, and beautiful parks to play in. Environmental justice wants to make this world real for everyone. It's about sharing all the good things our planet offers, like trees, animals, and rivers, so nobody is left out. It's our responsibility to make sure every person and every place is looked after, making our world a happier and healthier home for all of us. So, why is environmental justice important? You might wonder why we talk so much about environmental justice. And the key reason is because not everyone has been fair or just in the way we take care of our planet or treat each other. Sometimes some places and people don't get the same clean air, clean water, or beautiful parks that others do. That's not fair, right? We know that things haven't always worked the way they should, and that's exactly why environmental justice is important. It's about fixing those unfair situations and making sure everyone has the same chance to live in a healthy and safe environment. It's like if we are playing a game and we see the rules aren't fair to everyone, we want to change the rule to make sure everyone can play and have fun together. Ultimately, we are working towards a future where the examples of having clean parks in every neighborhood, safe water for everyone, is a reality for all, not just a dream. You can help contribute towards this goal by doing things such as shopping at local businesses. You can locate and support businesses owned by people of color. You can reduce and reuse things that you can purchase. Know what you can and cannot recycle and recycle appropriately. You can do things like clean up litter in community spaces and so much more. Now, I would like to introduce you to my colleague Claire, who will take it from here to talk to you more about the Department of Natural Resources. Claire will share more about the amazing things DNR does and how we can all be a part of protecting our planet.
Good morning. My name is Claire, and I'm an educator working to connect young people with opportunities to learn outside and explore the many jobs that impact environmental issues. Everyone on the call today is an employee of the Washington Department of Natural Resources, or DNR. DNR is a part of the state government, guided by a mission to manage, sustain, and protect the health and productivity of Washington's lands and waters to meet the needs of present and future generations. Our work has a lot to do with environmental justice because, as Jessica mentioned, environmental justice is all about making sure everyone has an equal opportunity to experience the benefits of a healthy environment, is equally protected from environmental hazards and harms, and has an opportunity to influence how we make decisions. Our agency does a lot of things, so we employ lots of professionals working in programs like recreation, aquatics, geology, wildfire, forestry, engineering, environmental policy, and the management of state lands. If you're interested in environmental issues in any way, shape, or form, there's a job at DNR for you. DNR is a land manager, which means we're responsible for activities on more than 5.6 million acres of state land, and you can see that land shown here in blue. These lands are public lands, meaning that they're owned by you, the civilians of Washington state, and managed by us, the DNR, for the benefit of all of Washington. Maybe you've been to DNR managed land, like Mount Si or Oyster Dome, Tahuya State Forest, Capitol Forest, or Little Pend Oreille. DNR is also the largest wildfire fighting agency in the state. All of the lands shown here on this next image are places that the DNR protects from wildfire. DNR does a lot of things, but we're going to focus on 3 parts of our work today. These are the 3 topics for the art contest. As you hear from each of the next 3 speakers, who are DNR staff representing our work in these different topics, think about which is most interesting to you and which one you would be most interested in making your art about. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn things over to Sam, who's going to speak to all of us about responsible recreation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Claire. And good morning, everybody. My name is Sam, and I'm the Recreation Operations Manager with the Department of Natural Resources. Before we talk about what responsible recreation has to do with environmental justice, let's talk about what these 2 words mean together. You probably already know that recreation is anything you do for enjoyment or fun. This includes an endless list of activities that can be anything from reading to playing board games or video games to pick up basketball. For this art contest, though, we're going to focus on outdoor recreation. Some of my family's favorite outdoor recreation activities are on this slide. While not all of these photos were taken on DNR managed land, we like to say that you can do just about everything somewhere on the land we manage, from hang gliding to mountain biking, quiet nature walks, motorized off-road vehicle driving, camping, horseback riding, bird watching, and more. It's also important to recognize that people use nature and outdoor spaces for things other than recreation. For example, they use it for cultural and religious practices, hunting, fishing, foraging, which means gathering plants, mushrooms, or other natural products for eating or other purposes, and more. This slide shows a few of those activities and their natural resources, including western red cedar trees and the camas plant, which are important for many Washington tribes. Now let's talk about responsible outdoor recreation. Simply put, responsible recreation is the respect or care for nature and the people using it. And remember, people use the outdoors and nature for many things that aren't recreation. When we recreate, we affect all types of users, sometimes in negative ways that we don't intend. This is what connects recreation to that idea of environmental justice that Jessica talked about a few minutes ago. There are many ways that these topics are connected, but today we'll focus on 2, safety and belonging and conserving plants and wildlife. So what does recreation have to do with safety and belonging? Well, some people, whether it's because of the color of their skin, where they're from, the languages they speak, or their physical ability, don't feel safe or welcome going to parks, woods, beaches, or other outdoor spaces. These are only some of the reasons people may not feel safe or belong in the outdoors. Others may feel that way because they simply didn't grow up using those places. The bottom line is environmental justice means everyone who wants access to the outdoors should feel safe and welcome doing so. There's a lot of hard work that needs to be done, including by DNR, to make the outdoors more inclusive and welcoming. A few of the things we at DNR are working on now is translating information and signs into multiple languages. We're also working to involve underrepresented communities earlier when planning new recreational opportunities like parks and trailheads, so we're building the right things near the people that need it most. So what can you do? I'm guessing you don't have a job yet, like designing multi-language signs or new trails. However, there's a lot you can do right now, and it's pretty simple. The biggest way you can help people feel like they belong in the outdoors is by being friendly and welcoming, especially when people are different than you, or using the outdoors in a different way. I bet you're already practicing this type of action at home, on sports teams, or in the classroom. While outdoor recreation and simply being outside is amazing and healthy for the people doing it, it can also have negative effects or impacts on the environment, whether we mean to or not. These impacts can include pollution, litter, or stressing wildlife simply by humans being there. When animals are stressed, it changes how they move, eat, hide, hunt, and interact with each other. This can be bad for their survival. Also, when we walk off trail or pick beautiful flowers or other plants, it can make it difficult for some species to survive. So this is tricky. On one hand, environmental justice means everyone should have access to the outdoors, and on the other, more people outdoors have impacts on plants and wildlife. So what can we do? DNR is currently working with Washington tribes and other state agencies to better understand the impacts recreation has on wildlife, especially large game like elk. This information will help us make better decisions about where additional use might be okay and where it might need to be restricted. And here's where you come in. Every time someone recreates outdoors, they make choices that impact the environment. Here are just a few examples of actions you can take. First, you can learn the 7 leave no trace principles. The photo on the left illustrates 2 of them. In the first, we found tracks of a large cat on the mountain behind our house. Rather than following them to see if we could find the animal, we took photos and left the area. The photo to the right of that shows a cultural site we visited in Utah that was used by the ancient Puebloans. While at the site, we were quiet, respectful, and didn't touch or take anything. That brings us to the second way. Washington is the ancestral and current home of many tribes in the areas you recreate. WashingtonTribes.org and the Snoqualmie Ancestral Lands Movement are great places to start. That information should be available in the packet of materials for the art contest. Another action you can take is to volunteer at events to clean up parks and natural areas. This can be especially helpful for environmental justice if you do it in places that aren't where you usually go or in places that need more help. In addition to the things you can do today that we just talked about, you can also pursue a job or career in recreation that moves us towards an environmentally just world. This slide shows 3 examples of these jobs with agencies like DNR. First, you could work on a trail crew to maintain trails or conduct environmental restoration work. Some of these opportunities are available for youth, such as the Northwest Youth Corps, so you don't even need to be 18. Others make a lifelong profession of it, whether they work for a Corps program or on a team like ours. If you like working with people and like solving problems, you could also work as a parks planner. In an environmentally just world, these people meet with tribes, communities, and other users to design facilities like trailheads and trail systems that meet the needs of all users while minimizing the environmental impact. Or you could also help educating people about how to recreate responsibly with a job like a park ranger or recreation warden. These people are out in nature almost every day, helping, teaching, and enforcing rules and laws. If you want to learn more, there's an entire organization dedicated to this topic. Check them out at recreateresponsibly.org. I can't wait to see all the artwork you create that shows how recreating responsibly or a job in recreation can lead to a more environmentally just world. Thank you, and I'll turn things over to my colleague, Michael.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Lang, and I serve as a policy advisor here at the Department of Natural Resources. And that means I get to work on lots of different topics, including urban forestry. So I'm excited to talk with you all about trees today. Next slide. First, I do want to just share a little story. So when I was in 5th grade, I went to a day camp in the summer, and the counselors kept talking about this magic spot that we would get to experience. And on Friday, they took us out into the park and they sat us down underneath a tree, one kid per tree. And they told us to wait. And as we settled down and practiced being quiet, I remember seeing birds and animals slowly start to emerge as if they couldn't see me. I also noticed things that had been there all along, like tiny insects crawling along the bark, or the way that the light and the wind moves through certain leaves. And it was beautiful. And for those few minutes, it really was my own little magic spot. Next slide. So I have an invitation, a question for you all. Do you have a favorite tree? Maybe it is a tree near your home or at a park or at school. And what makes it so special? Next slide. Over the years, I've gotten to learn a lot about trees and all of the reasons why they're good for people. We call these benefits. Trees can help clean the air, reduce stress, provide shade and cooler temperatures. They create places for animals to live. They clean water. They lower the risk of certain diseases like asthma. They inspire physical activity, and they help improve safety. Next slide. Unfortunately, not everyone gets to experience those same benefits. Have you ever looked at a map and noticed that some areas are more green than others? Or maybe you're on a sports team and you play at different fields and you notice that some parks have more trees than others. Now, if you've played outside in the summer, you probably notice that it feels pretty good under the shade of those trees. Next slide. Here's an example of 2 trees in Tacoma. When some neighborhoods have trees and others don't, that means that we don't have tree equity in a city. In the summer, these trees can help lower the temperature by more than 12 degrees. Now, when everyone can benefit equally from trees, well, that is helping us get closer to environmental justice. Next slide. So, how do we fix this? We plant more trees, and we especially plant trees in areas that don't have a lot of trees. This is a map of a tree equity index, and this is a project that the Department of Natural Resources is working on. We can send the link out later, and you can look up your score for your own community. The areas in orange on this map, well, those are areas that we want to focus on planting more trees. Next slide. In nature and in wild places, trees do a pretty good job of growing on their own. They cast thousands of seeds, and some of them will grow up to become full-grown trees. But what about in cities? Those are places where trees have been cut down and where we have a lot of concrete and a lot of pavement. And so these are not easy places for trees to grow all by themselves. Trees need a little extra help, and that's where you in urban forestry can come in. Next slide. Urban forestry is about planting and taking care of trees in our cities and communities. This is different than forestry in wild areas like in the mountains. That kind of forestry is also very important to our state and something that the Department of Natural Resources does a lot of work on. But we have a whole team of people dedicated to urban forestry. And here are some examples of what urban forestry looks like. These activities include planting and watering trees, taking care of trees that are sick or have pests, pruning branches or removing trees, figuring out where to put trees, figuring out what species is best for their location, talking with communities and helping them with their planning, working with volunteers, and even growing baby trees in special places called plant nurseries. There are a lot of cool jobs in urban forestry, like being an arborist, a planner, a natural resource specialist, a horticulturalist, these are some fancy words, and an ecologist. And honestly, I think no matter your background, you could probably find a way to work in urban forestry. As an example, I went to art school, but now I work for the Department of Natural Resources. Next slide. Taking care of trees isn't something new. Indigenous people have cared for and used trees for thousands of years, and they continue to do so today. Trees and forests are important for cultural practices like harvesting traditional plants, food, and materials. So if we're trying to be more equitable and practice environmental justice, that also means that we still have places for these traditional cultural activities. One way we can do this is by planting trees that are native to Washington, like Western red cedar or Douglas fir. Next slide. There's a famous saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. That's probably older than you are. The second best time is to plant a tree today. And so here are some actions that you can take today. You can look at places in your neighborhood that do not have a lot of trees. And scientists, they call this taking an inventory. You can talk with adults and ask for more trees. Many cities and organizations, they actually give trees away for free. You can volunteer at tree planting events. You can remove invasive plant species that make it hard for them to grow. And you can help water and take care of newly planted trees until they're strong enough to survive on their own. And my last invitation is that you can make some art. You can draw a picture and imagine what your neighborhood might look like with more trees. And that's just one example of how art can help urban forestry. That's one of my favorite things about artists. You all can imagine things that don't yet exist, and you can inspire others to imagine better futures. And hopefully these are futures that include a lot more trees. So I'm excited to see your posters, and thank you for your time today. I'll pass it over to my colleague, Ashley.
Thanks, Michael. So hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Blazina. I work as an environmental planner at the Department of Natural Resources, but my previous job was the Community Wildfire Preparedness Coordinator. So I used to work with communities and different homes and households to think about what are some of their different needs to feel prepared for if a wildfire does come. So I just wanted to start my presentation by really talking about wildfires and the fact that they might be kind of scary. They're big and they're often really loud and bright and hot. And so one of the things that we can do, or one of the ways to make them a little less scary, and we'll go to the next slide, is to prepare. And if we can prepare, wildfires can seem a little less scary. So we're going to go over a few different ways that we can prepare, looking at things around our house, preparing an emergency bag, and also talking about evacuation routes as a few different ways to prepare for wildfire. Next slide. So when we think about environmental justice as it ties to wildfire preparedness, the best way I could think about how to summarize it is by thinking about what are all of the different needs that people have in a wildfire situation. And if we're preparing in an environmentally just way, we're thinking about all of the different needs and making sure all of those needs, no matter what they are met to make sure everyone is safe and feels comfortable in a wildfire situation. Next slide. So I wanted to pause because I talked a little bit about communities. And so I wanted to share a few examples of some communities that I've worked with in terms of preparing for wildfire. So this image on the upper right is something we call a vertical community. And so that's something, those are things like apartment buildings or condominium buildings. And your neighborhood might be the floor that you live on, or it might be your entire building. But that's definitely one version of a community. Another version of a community that I've worked with is something more like a horizontal community. So something on the upper right over here. And that can be things like different houses and maybe some different shops that are within that community as well. Finally, On the bottom, we have a more rural or spread out community. All of these are different versions of communities or neighborhoods, and it's likely that one of yours looks somewhat like one of these. The things that we're going to talk about apply to all of the different communities or any type of community that you might live in. Next slide. So in your community, there's probably a lot of different needs and things that you need to think about to make sure that everyone is prepared. You might even have some of these needs within your own household. So I'm just going to share a few from our own family of what we need to consider for wildfire preparedness. So this example is of my husband's grandparents. Both of my husband's grandparents are deaf, which means that they can't hear. So they have to use American Sign Language to communicate. However, not everyone in our community or in their community understands American Sign Language. So when they're preparing their emergency bag, which includes things like food and water and clothes, medications and important papers, one of the things they have to include is a visual communication board like this one on the right. This has things like pictures that also include words. Sometimes these words are in different languages as well, that help them to communicate with other people in their community, but also emergency wildfires or emergency workers if they were to have to evacuate their home. Next slide. As another example, we have some different needs in terms of what we have to consider for evacuation if we were to leave our house. So this picture on the left is my son Murray, and Murray uses a wheelchair to get around. So when we're thinking about evacuation routes, we have to consider areas that are more flat, things that have things like curb cuts, as well as sidewalks to help make sure that it's accessible for Murray. Some other folks in our community might be able to use things like trails or access routes that have things like stairs. And so thinking about these sort of things for your community, I encourage you to think about what are some of the different access and physical needs that members in your community or household might have if they were to need to leave their house during a wildfire. Next slide. So I wanted to pause for a second, and some of you may already be aware of this, but just wanted to talk about some of the history of wildfire in Washington state. So fire has been used as a tool to manage a lot of landscapes, so manage a lot of our forests, but also some of the different habitats and ecosystems in and around forests since time immemorial by the indigenous populations of Washington state. As you can see from the pictures on the far left and far right, the indigenous people of Washington continue to use fire as a tool to manage a lot of these landscapes, to keep them healthy, to get rid of things like invasive plants, so things like weeds, make habitat for different animals, and also to help different native plants grow. Because fire has been part of Washington, and the entire state has been part of both Western and Eastern Washington since time immemorial, it's important that we all learn how to live with fire effectively, since it is part of our state just as much as we need to prepare for things like earthquakes. Next slide. So one thing that you can do to help prepare is to look around your house. And again, this is one version of a house. Your home might look a little bit different, but the same principles apply. So in this particular area, the most important area to look at is this area in red in the picture. So this is the area on and around the house, out to 5 feet beyond the perimeter of your house. And one thing I encourage you to do is to look at that area and look for materials you might use to start a campfire. So this is going to be things like dry leaves, things like sticks, even some bark, anything that you'd use to start a campfire, because, next slide, these are often the materials that actually start a wildfire or carry a wildfire to areas close to and around our homes. So if you remove things like small leaves and sticks and bark, that can really help to make your house more resilient to wildfires and fires in general. Next slide. So to close out, I wanted to share some of the 3 different images of different ways we talked about preparing for wildfire. And then also to encourage you all with a few different prompts of what you might be able to include in some of your artwork. So one thing you might want to share is, what is your overarching vision for what your community would look like if it was prepared for wildfire? What are some of the things that it would include? What are some of the things that you might do to help prepare your home or to prepare your community? Another thing to maybe consider for your art is, what are some of the unique things that your community needs to consider to prepare? What are some of the different languages that your community speaks? What are some of the different physical considerations and needs that your community has? I really look forward to seeing all of your art. And as a final picture, I just wanted to show a few images, next slide, of a few different homes that were able to live very effectively with wildfire due to actions similar to the ones that we talked about today. I wish you all the best of luck in making some beautiful artwork, and I look forward to seeing what you create. Thanks.
Thanks, Ashley. And now we'll have Monica come on, who is going to share a video for us about the art contest.
Hello. My name is Monica Corral. My pronouns are she, they, ella. And I'm the office administrator here at DNR's Workplace Culture and Development Office, which organizes events like these. I'll be going over a little bit about the rules and prizes, and I'll be playing this short informational video about the contest to start us off.
Welcome to the 2024 Department of Natural Resources Art Contest. Learn about this year's contest. Hi, we are excited to announce this year's art contest. Washington youth will share their unique and original artistic pieces on environmental justice. The topics can be about wildfire resilience and recovery, including indigenous uses of prescribed fire, urban canopy cover and tree equity, including the importance of native trees, and responsible recreation, including the tribal ancestral lands movement. Students in kindergarten through 12th grade may enter in one of 3 categories: grade school, which is kindergarten through 5th grade, middle school, 6th through 8th grade, and high school, 9th through 12th grade. There will be winners in each grade group. The first place prize will have their artwork on 2024 outreach materials and will be recognized on the DNR website. The second place prize will have a DNR guest speaker in their classroom. All participants will get DNR swag. Artwork must be submitted by 9 p.m. April 12, 2024. The public voting period begins at 10 a.m. on April 15th and closes at midnight on April 26th. Questions, comments? Feel free to reach out to the Workplace Culture and Development team.
Alrighty, I'll just give my colleague a little bit more time to pull the slides up again. Thank you so much. And a little bit of what was mentioned in the video. Oh, 1 second. There we go. Your artwork must be submitted by 9 p.m. April 12th, 2024. And we ask that you submit these in a format of high resolution scan, PDF, or a high-resolution photo, a JPEG, if scanning is not an option for your artwork. Please remember that kids under 13 must have their parents submit their art. Voting begins at 10 a.m. on April 15th and ends at midnight on April 26th. And for the full rules, please visit dnr.wa.gov/kids, again, for the full rules. And this is open to all Washington State residents. I'll pass it off to Lucky. We'll go over how to submit your artwork.
All right, I'm just going to steal the share here for a second. Hello, everyone. My name is Lucky Sisavong. Pronouns are he, him. I am the Employee Engagement Specialist for DNR, and I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough of our kids page at DNR. So you can access this page by going to dnr.wa.gov/kids or visiting our homepage and scrolling to the bottom and clicking the Youth Education under More Resources. So on this page, you can find everything we talked about today, including more resources on the 3 topics of the art contest: wildfire resilience and recovery, urban canopy cover and tree equity, and responsible recreation, as well as more environmental justice resources as well. All you need to do is click on this and I'll open up the resource. At the bottom of the page, you can find art contest details, or by clicking this button, it'll bring you down to the bottom of the page where you can find the rules of the art contest for this year. So like the video mentioned and how Monica mentioned, art must be submitted. Here we go. Art must be submitted through one of these links. And if you click on one of the links, it'll bring you to the Woo box where you can submit your artwork. Please note that each link is unique to each grade band, K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. If you click it, it'll bring you to the respective one, and it'll bring you to this form where you can submit your artwork. If you scroll down, there's an entry form where if you are under the age of 13, your parents must submit the artwork for you. And then it just asks a couple questions about your art. And then you need to agree to some of the terms and conditions, and then just hit enter. And then once you hit enter, your artwork will be available in the gallery in about a day after we approve it. And then, like it was said in the video, voting begins at 10 a.m. on April 15th, and it will end on April 26th, with winners being announced shortly after. So with that being said, I'm going to give it back to Jessica to close us out.
All right, thank you so very much, Lucky, and to all of our guest speakers today. Just a quick note, if you have any questions about the art contest, you can contact us at DNR REWCD, and that is going to be DNR REWCD at DNR.wa.gov for any questions. As we wrap up today, I really want to say a huge thank you to all of you for joining us. We've talked about some really important things like what environmental justice is and why it's important for all of us. We also learned about the Department of Natural Resources and how our job is to look after our planet's amazing natural spaces and make sure everyone can enjoy them. This year's art contest has 3 special topics as we covered today around wildfire resilience and recovery, urban canopy cover and tree equity, and responsible recreation. Each of these topics helps us think about how we can all play a part in making our world a fairer and healthier place. We can't wait to see your artwork and hear your ideas about these topics. This contest is a chance to learn something new and help others think about how we can all work together for environmental justice. Goodbye for now, and good luck in the art contest. Have a wonderful day.